many of you here have ever needed to be rescued? I'm thinking, car broken down on the side of the road, run out of petrol, wheel fallen off, whatever. In my case, mobility scooter, but still, same thing. Or maybe you've needed to be rescued because you've needed to call an ambulance and you've needed help with that. I had a weird dream last night that I was, I think, rock climbing in a dress. Now, I've no idea what that was about, just brain misfiring. But actually, in this dream, all I needed was someone to talk me down, to say, it'll be okay, it'll be alright. Just keep going. Which I think vaguely recollects the one time that I did do rock climbing, and I got to the top and got a bit scared. And then, you know, someone did say, you'll be fine, just keep going. So, there are many ways that we can need to be rescued. Some practically, like stuck on the side of the road with a car problem. Some, it may be more emotional. We need someone who's going to come and help us in an emergency. One of the things that we teach young people when they're very small is, what do you do? Who do you ring? What number do you call? I expect Dan does know the answer to that. You ring 999, of course. And you could get the police, the fire service, ambulance, air ambulance, coast guard, lifeboat crew, depending where you're stuck. I don't know about you, but I really quite like watching those programmes, 999 Helicopter Rescue and various other things about people who've, I don't know, broken their leg up a hillside or something. I quite like watching those. I'm not quite sure why. I'm not sure what that says about me. But I like to see people being rescued. Maybe we are the rescuer. Maybe we are the person who has come to somebody's aid, been at the right time, the right place at the right time, to help someone rescue them from their difficulty. Sometimes all we need to do is take a moment, look more carefully, listen for a voice calling out in trouble, and then take action to initiate a rescue. I have saved a kid from drowning once. I was in a swimming pool abroad somewhere, and you know those rings that you can swim in? This little child was in their ring and they were looking upwards and their parents were, I don't know, doing whatever. And she leant forwards and she upturned. So her legs were out, but her head was underwater. And you could see her panicking because she didn't know how to right herself or how to swim out. So I turned her around and she screamed for the house down, which is quite understandable. I just happened to be in the pool at the time. Any human being would have done the same thing, I hope, and just quickly turned them the right way up. Disasters can happen extremely quickly, can't they? Just 1 minute. Anyone who's got kids, or indeed dogs, knows that 1 minute of silence is worrying. Something could be happening. You could end up having to rescue your television, I don't know. It depends what they've got up to. My dog was sunbathing yesterday. She was out there half the day sunbathing, and then my husband heard this really weird noise, like a knocking noise. And he turned around and found her trying to get out from under the gate. She got bored and thought she'd take herself for a walk. Yes, she got retrieved rather than rescued. So today, in our story, Moses was rescued from the river. His mother enabled that rescue by letting him go so that he could be saved. You must remember from the story, the time that Moses was born in, all of the Hebrew baby boys were being killed because the Pharaoh and etc. feared that the Israelites were growing stronger and that there were too many of them, and so all the baby boys were being killed. And so Moses' mum wanted to save her baby, obviously, and came up with this plan of putting him in a papyrus basket and putting him in the river, and just seeing what happened. Very cleverly, Moses' sister was watching. She plays quite an important part in the story, doesn't she? Because Pharaoh's daughter finds the baby, and then the sister pops up and goes, "Oh, would you like me to find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby?" "Oh, that would be great," she said, and then gets paid to nurse, and then she takes the baby to her mother, and her mother gets paid to nurse her own baby. It's quite cool, really. I mean, that's not just rescue, that's kind of turning it all around. But in the end, his mother had to let him go so that he could be saved. She had to risk him not ever coming back to her. And I don't know if you've ever needed rescue by a mum or a dad. If you've ever watched those videos on YouTube of parents who just seem to dive in time to catch a head before it hits the floor, or mums and dads, grandparents, aunts and uncles, godparents and teachers. So many of them have been rescuers in our own lives when we've been hurt or in danger or needing help. How often have we prayed for rescue? God, get me out of this situation. God, change this for the better. There are so many times, I'm sure, when we've cried out to God for help. How does our faith help us when we need to be rescued? Well, firstly, the Bible tells us this. You are not alone. Even if you feel alone, and physically you can see no other human being in your vicinity, you are not alone. God is with you. Sometimes we feel alone in a crowd of people, but even then, God is with us. We are not alone. And all the way through the Bible, particularly in the Psalms, there are lots of people who call out to God in their sufferings. Bible stories, such as the story about Moses today, tell us that our difficulties are not a sign that we're out of step with God. Bad things happen to good people. All the time. And being a Christian does not mean that you are immune from the troubles of this world. If you are a Christian, bad news, folks, you're still going to get sick. Worse news, you're still going to die at some point. That's a bit inevitable. Your finances are not protected because you are a believer. In fact, Jesus promised us that we would have troubles in this world, and indeed we do. We are not immune from the troubles of this world. I once got made redundant twice in the same week. I had 2 jobs at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, I had none. Being a Christian didn't save me from that, but I was never alone in it. I felt awful. It was awful. It was the week before Christmas. That didn't help. But I was not alone. You're never alone. But being a Christian does not stop us from suffering. But it does mean that we are never alone in that suffering. We can always talk to God about it. Anything. Even if we're mad at him. Even if we're cross. Even if we use language we ought not use. God will listen to our prayers. And he will answer them. Not necessarily in the way that you anticipate. This reminds me of the sort of joke about the guy whose house is flooded. And he climbs out onto his roof. And he is convinced that God is going to save him. And a boat comes along and they say, get in the boat, the water's rising. And he said, no, it's okay. He said, God's going to save me. So eventually the boat goes away. And another boat comes as the water rises further. And they said, get in the boat, the water's rising. Look, it's nearly at the top of your roof. He said, no, he said, God's going to save me. In the end, he's kind of stuck on his chimney, and a helicopter comes, drops down a ladder and shouts, climb up the ladder. And he says, God's going to save me. Anyway, he drowns. And he gets to heaven. And he said, God, I had faith in you. Why didn't you save me? And he said, well, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter. What more did you want? Sometimes the means of rescue, it's not the one that we want it to be. But it's there. Sometimes it's not even someone who has faith who helps us on our journey. It could be anybody. Rescues are not without pain, though. If your house is flooded and you have to leave it behind, that is not without pain. In Moses' case, his life was spared, but his mother had to see him adopted by another woman. Princess or not, that will have hurt. We don't know God's plans for us. There are larger purposes than our own individual lives. We are precious to God, each and every one. But God wants to use us for something greater that he is planning. Think of it like a tapestry. We're all threads in a tapestry. God is painting a picture. Well, I'm mixing my metaphors now. But God is tapestrying a picture. Sewing, whatever. And he's making a picture out of tapestry, and we're all parts of that. And we don't see the whole picture. We might see a little bit where we are, but God's making a whole picture, a rescue plan for the whole of the world. We have the story of Moses' rescue this morning, and it tells us about God's love, but it also tells us very much about the love of a mother. And today we have an opportunity to give thanks for those around us who are mums and mother figures. And hopefully today you'll give back to your mums in an act of love. Hopefully those of whom are mothers will have received some flowers, maybe. I don't know. Some chocolates, a gift. Maybe lunch will be made for you. I don't know. But we also have an opportunity for those of us whose mothers are no longer with us to say a word of thanks to God. Jesus loved and cared for his mother. Tradition says that after Joseph died and helped run the family... Tradition says that after Joseph died, Jesus helped run the family business as a carpenter until he was 30 years old. And that's when he started his mission to proclaim the kingdom of God. But even then, he never forgot his mother. And on the cross, as he was dying, he entrusted Mary to his friend John. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved, John, standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." And to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. He cared for her like she was his mother. He looked after her. He adopted, effectively, a new family member that took place at the foot of the cross and paints a picture of a God who really cares, a God for whom relationship is important. Here we have a dying son, a bewildered disciple and friend, and a mother whose heart is being broken. And Jesus is on the cross. He's being crucified. He is in horrible pain, and yet he isn't concerned for himself. He's concerned for his mother. And he's concerned for John, because this wasn't just about looking after his mum. He knew that John also needed a relationship. So there's this wonderful image to me of God being compassionate and caring, even at the moment of Jesus' death. His heart was open to those who suffer. He understood what Mary was going through and her grief, and so he tenderly wanted to provide for her. By doing this, Jesus revealed his love for his family and for us. So Jesus invites them to form a new relationship. A new family is created in the shadow of the cross. Bishop Philip North once wrote, "Here, through the shedding of blood, he forms a new family of love, one that we call the church." You know what? We're made for relationships. Human beings are made to be in relationship with one another. I don't mean like a man and woman or a partnership relationship. I mean we're meant to be in relationship with each other. We need friends. We need people to know us. We need to know and be known, love and be loved, celebrate and be celebrated. We need that. That's what we're wired for. And so God puts us in families, and that family is the church. And this is our little family. And that means that when you are lonely or hurt, you should be able to turn to someone in your family, in our community, for help. We can strengthen and support one another. As we go through life, we often end up caring for the ones who once cared for us, and we give back that love. Adrian Plass wrote a wonderful poem about his mother, and he says, It's, I mothered her who mothered me. As he talks about caring for her in her older years. I mothered her who mothered me. We have that opportunity to care for those who have cared for us. It's really appropriate we have this reading today on Mothering Sunday, when the pain of Jesus' crucifixion and the pain of motherhood are brought together. Mums and other carers in whatever shape and size of family are remembered today as the glue of love that bonds and cares and keeps things together. And that too is what Christians and the church are called to do and be. We are called to be glue that bonds and loves and keeps things together. We are supposed to be glue in our community. We're supposed to hold things together, hold our community up in prayer, build relationships with people outside the church. It would be nice if we did that and then they came in. But if not, it's still not lost. People will find their way to God and we can be part of that journey. This is the teaching of Jesus, who told us to love God and love each other. It's almost like he said, here are my commands. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And love your neighbour as you love yourself. And I feel implicit in that is, and when you've got that sorted, you can come back for further instructions. Because we never get that sorted. We work on it. So we are to be people of love. For me, the challenge today is to remember that my mother is an imperfect human being who did her best, which I must admit over years I have not viewed as being good enough, but I'm getting better at understanding her. That can be difficult. Our challenge is to also thank God today for those people who have been part of our journey, who have mothered us, nurtured us and loved us. But also to be that for each other and for other people. To be a positive influence in our community, to be encouraging, to be inviting, to be the glue that holds together the church, the community. We're supposed to be that. So far I've managed to mix metaphors. I've had glue, I've had paint, I've had tapestry. Apparently we're having a crafty Sunday today. Good job I didn't mention knitting, crochet or macrame, partly because I have absolutely no idea how any of those things work. But if you do and you're interested, on Tuesdays come to our drop-in at 10 o'clock and someone else will be doing something interesting. No, seriously, today is an opportunity to remember mothers and to thank God for them, but also to be nurturing and a reminder that God is with us even in our most harsh difficulties. We are never alone and God cares for us. So we're going to sing a song, How Deep the Father's Love for Us, which is a wonderful song, one of my favourites.